Here we are with Mop himself. How you doing, mate? You all good? How you holding up?
Yo, good man. How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad, my man. So, unfortunate result for you at the weekend. How you holding up? Any injuries? Any damage? How you holding up?
Nah, all good, man. I'm still in one piece. I was obviously unfortunate. I knew I was in for a tough fight with Mehdi. I know he was a good striker. I felt like I had the skill set to beat him. His game plan kind of threw me off a bit, which wasn't ideal. I didn't expect him to pressure me as much. I watched a lot of footage on him, and majority of his fights he hangs off guys, which is kind of similar to how I fight. Both kind of counter strikers. So I'm right for the gate. He kind of pressured me, which kind of threw me off a little bit. But I'm comfortable with that. I deal with guys like that in the gym all the time. But then right at the start, I rocked him pretty good. I caught him a good clean right hand. In hindsight now, I probably should have tried to jump on that. But my coach kind of shouted not to go after him then. But in the fight, it doesn't. When I've watched it back, it doesn't actually look as clear. But it looked like he was rocked out quite a little bit. His eyes were away a wee bit. He done a good job of recovering quick, and he got back down to how he wanted the fight to go. He was doing a good job of pressuring me. I was doing a good job at landing a lot of low kicks. Was kind of part of my game plan to slow him down. Obviously thinking he was going to hang off at first, but his leg looked like it was getting chewed up a wee bit. So I was doing a good job with that, but the pressure was good for him, man. And he landed a really clean right hand on me, which put me to the kind of back against the fence. And it was more a kind of barrage of shots. He caught me a right hand left hook, which kind of dropped me, which I was completely still there, like as in it never put me out or anything. It never really gave me a flash. It just kind of sat me down. But I think it's, to be fair, like I'm not trying to say it wasn't a fair stoppage, because it was. I think the way I went down, I put my hand up and stuff, which is just a natural reaction. I feel like obviously I was hoping I would maybe get out of the round with there only been like 15 seconds to go. Obviously, if he followed up, I think I would have maybe managed to come up in a single leg and maybe grapple a wee bit more. But it's just part of the sport, man. It was a fair stoppage. I can't complain. He done a good job. Respect to him.
I mean, this is kind of the nature of sort of fast-paced sort of fights. And again, I mean, this is why this is quite an interesting thing in itself, because you're saying you smelt blood, but you didn't jump on it. That's sort of what you'd hear the opposite story quite a lot, especially in the amateur sort of rankings of, okay, I thought I had him, right, went in balls to the wall, gassed out, got caught at the end of that. But again, the opposite
Yeah.
thing, almost regretting not jumping on it. It's a bit of a, I don't know, it's a bit quite ironic, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Obviously, hindsight's a great thing. It's now looking back, I'm like, man, I should have jumped on him there, and I felt like maybe two or three more clean shots, I might have got him out there. But I mean, then again, I might have not, and then again, I might have got clipped rushing in. So it's all like, I feel like I could have done this, I feel like I could have done that, but at the end of the day, I never done it. He done his job. He fought well, and fair play to him. Like I can't say anything bad about the guy. He was a total gentleman from start to finish, to be honest. He was really respectful, and he took, like, I knew he was going to take me seriously. We both had legit records going in. He's obviously got a wee bit more kind of a name out there, because he's fought in Cage Warriors before, and he's obviously had finishes and stuff. So everybody knows who he is, and no one really knows who I am. But although I got stopped kind of near the end of the first round, I think I didn't kind of embarrass myself for that. I feel like it was a competitive fight up until he caught me. It's just one of those things, and with the 4 rounds gloves on, you get caught, and it's hard to recover sometimes.
Oh, 100%. You're given a lot of like room for error sort of thing in as well. I mean, Mediban Lakdar obviously fight the year with Joe McColgan last year. And again, regards of you sort of studying him in your preparation, was it like watching the same kind of fights back? Is it, I don't know, dissecting like those 15 minutes in itself? What is your kind of like opponent research like in that sort of time?
I mean, I don't usually watch a lot of guys' fights, to be honest, when I usually get matched. I don't like to obsess over what they're going to do. I like to just have my, like, I want to inflict my game and my style on somebody. So I don't really, but I knew Mehdi was specifically good at boxing. So the only time I've ever had to do that before was I fought a Polish lad called Daniel Rikowski. And he was specifically good at Greco-Roman wrestling. He was like I think he was like a Polish champion in Greco-Roman wrestling. So I really had to like drill a lot of against the fence stuff, because that was his game. And this time, obviously, with Mehdi, I knew he was specifically like good with boxing. and that was basically what I'd done for most of my camp. I had guys kind of coming up, but the problem, not that obviously, the problem was my full fight camp. I had guys hanging off me, as in it was kind of we were at range a lot, and that's not how the fight ended up like going. It was smart on his part for pressuring me, but which is fine because I actually like that kind of. I like people pressuring me because I'm usually good at countering, and it was just that on the night Mehdi caught me, and that was it. So I didn't really go into too much detail. I usually watch people's last fight. I don't really see the point unless, I mean, obviously they were quite close together or whatever. A lot of time guys' fights are, like somebody a year prior, their skill set's going to be completely different. So I watched the fight with McColgan. It was a great fight. I actually thought the fight kind of might have went a little bit similar about me and Joe McColgan being reasonably kind of similar kind of heights and sizes. But it wasn't to be. It is what it is.
I mean, again, it's one of those sort of situations where there's so many variables, so many this, that, and the others. And what I would like to see after was obviously your sort of sportsmanship, the pair of you having a picture together. And again, that's sort of like camaraderie again. And when it comes to the fights in themselves, when you're given an opponent, do you need any sort of animosity sort of thing? Do you need any kind of like venom with it? Is it just to like a sparring match essentially? Is it like, okay, it's just business. Okay, whoever's in the cage, crack on. What's your sort of perspective of it?
Yeah, I don't really see it like that. I'm kind of all about respect with martial arts. Everybody's different, some folk like you see movie Luke and Jake Hadley. I mean, we couldn't have been complete opposites the way we kind of went about our business, but that's Luke's kind of. I don't necessarily think that's Luke's style, as in I just think he really didn't like Hadley. Like, I know he doesn't like Hadley, and I made it for a good fight, a build up, but. I think maybe I don't think necessarily Luke got caught too much up in the kind of hype of the fight or that. I don't think that's why. I just think Hadley was really smart in his approach, and that was a kind of different. I think the worst thing that happened in the fight was that Luke clipped Jake early doors. And I think he started to think, he knew he had the power to put him away. So he started chasing that, and then Hadley was just smart and really just kind of grinded him out for the 5 rounds. That wee kid's a good fighter, man. I'd be amazed if he doesn't get to do UFC next fight. But Luke's going straight back and got to get that belt back. I'm confident he can do that.
Now, that's the irony. The funny thing in that sort of situation is that Hadley now will either fight maybe Luke again, maybe not after like a 5-round kind of fight like that, but with Sam Creasy, who are both his previous training partners, which gets a bit of an interesting one for like Sam Creasy where he goes. And again, when it comes to having like teammates on the same card coming up short, how does it affect your sort of performance, that kind of energy sort of thing? Because obviously you're an experienced guy yourself, but again, you've got expecting clean sheets are always the ideal situation.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that when your mate comes back, a bit ahead in his hands a little bit?
Yeah, the trip home's never is good. No, I mean, I've dealt with that because I've fought in the local scene a lot. Majority of my fights have been main event. So I've sometimes got, because majority of the local scene, there's an amateur undercard and then there's a pro fight, so whatever, maybe 2 or 3 pro fights. So majority of my fights have been main event, and then I've had maybe 5, 6, 8, 9 teammates fighting prior to me. We've got quite a strong team up here, so I've had like fights where 8 fights have went by, all 8 of my teammates have won, and it's on me. Like, I'm the last fight of the night, where I don't really see it as pressure. And I've had it the other way where one of my close friends as well, like a lot of the boys that I train, they're all my close friends as well. So friends and teammates have lost it. It doesn't really affect me personally. Obviously, you want all your teammates to win, but I think. I don't know if it would have played a part for Luke mentally. Mental aspect for Luke, he's absolutely bulletproof, to be honest. I've never seen anybody quite like him, to be honest. He's a character, Luke. But mentally, I don't think you can break that kid. He's super tough, man. And I believe when he, obviously, I think he maybe one fight or whatever. It depends if Hadley gets signed to UFC. I think they've got to look at least be in the picture for the title, if not another title fight. I think him and Creasy would make a good match. I think that would be an interesting fight. And like you say, Creasy's a teammate of Hadley, so it'll be interesting to see what happens next for that.
I mean, this is all that sort of recency bias again, because as much as Hadley's now in the spotlight, let's not forget the last trilogy. Luke took the belt home with the most dominant decision win in like Cage Warriors history or whatever else. So again,
MMA history, just about.
yeah,
I think he only just missed it.
I was going to say, I mean, like, where did that go? Where did that conversation go? So yeah,
I know that was. Luke's excellent. Luke is like. I think I don't think he fought his best his last fight. I think he knows that he made a lot of mistakes and in the fight. And I think prior to it, he's not the best with his weight cuts. He leaves things to the last minute a lot of time, and he got away with it the last time. And I think this time it didn't pay off for him. I think it's already been big and strong at the weight, but cutting ridiculous amounts of weight the night before, I think going a 5-round fight is never going to be ideal.
So for your weight cuts and that side of things, and pot cut black, why not? What's your like discipline like when it comes to your like diet, nutrition sort of thing? Are you quite to the T, make sure every little grain of salt you have, or what's your sort of like?
I mean, I've made lightweight quite a lot, so I'm quite comfortable making the weight now. I've got my kind of diet and stuff down to a T. To be honest, I end up dieting too much sometimes, which isn't great because I sometimes go on a wee bit lighter than I maybe should for the fight. But I mean, that last one, I thought I was fighting on the September card, so I had got my weight right down, and because I just trained right through, and I got signed, I think maybe October, November time. My weight was down low anyway, so I was never really going to put, because sometimes I can go up to like 85 kilos. It just depends. Because I'm tall, so I get away with it. But my weight was, I barely cut any, like cut a bit of weight, but like I didn't cut near as much what I usually cut. I only cut like 3.5 kilos or something like that, which is nothing really for me, to be honest. I done it in one bath. I got one bath. I got it all off. Me look was I done it basically at like 10 o'clock at night, and I think me look still had about 5 kilos or 6 kilos still to lose. So I don't think that's good.
You're that guy.
Like,
You're that guy.
I've made weight, and I end up, because Luke personally as well.
Yeah.
So like I've never seen the likes of him with weight cuts. Like I've never seen anything like this in my life. He's like a diva. He's like, honestly, it just turns into a different person. He's like the nicest guy. Like he's brilliant to be around. Always want to laugh. See, when he starts cutting weight, he turns into a different person. So as soon as I made weight, I was like, I'm going to my room, and I just left my coach and my other teammate Callum. I was like, you can do his weight cut. I'm not staying with him tonight. But he's some boy.
I mean, this is kind of it as well, and you got to appreciate. It must be sort of polar opposites almost. You've got to, have all this energy sort of built up, thinking, okay, now I've got to do something with it now. Fuck, I've got to use it, getting the weight cut done.
He's struggling.
Let's say it's all part of the process in itself. And again, when it comes to your discipline, your nutrition anyway, there's something you've always been quite good with, always been quite good at taking responsibility for that. It's something you've had to sort of build up as you've sort of developed.
I don't get me wrong, out with fights, I wouldn't say I'm amazing. I like a chippy as much as the next person. I'm obviously, I work full time as well, so like it's obviously a bit more difficult working full time and training full time. Like I literally have like no time on my hands. Every time, as soon as I'm luckily where I've got a gym at my work, I can do cardio and strength stuff like during the day, but it's not the same obviously as actually properly training. But I still get like 3-4 hours in it every night. So I know my nutrition's pretty good. I eat pretty clean. Like I have the odd thing, like if I want it, if I'm out with camp and stuff, but I don't go crazy binging. I used to do that when I first started making weight. After fights and stuff, I would blow right up to like 85, 86 kilos and that, and it wasn't like a good 85, 86 kilos. It was just like I was out of shape, so I was just eating rubbish. But I've kind of, the older I've got, I've kind of been a wee bit more sensible and maintaining a decent kind of weight. I don't really go above 82 kilos or that now. So, my weight kind of the last couple of weight cuts have been really easy for me. Problem is I'm just a wee bit too big to make featherweight. I kind of question. I spoke to a nutritionist at one point. I was considering doing it, but like 6'1" at featherweight, it was pretty tough. So I think I'll just stick to lightweight, to be honest.
I mean, I'm a 6'2" featherweight, and I'll tell you what, it's not very happy. It's not a very good way to be.
Is that right? No, it's definitely not. I think upper body wise, I'm not like ridiculously massive, but I've got really big legs, so I think that's what kind of prevents me doing it. I played football for a lot of years, so I think that's what's held me back.
Yeah, I haven't got that luxury, don't worry. But yeah, it's just one of those ones. I mean, this is always that point of like, I don't know, diminishing returns again, these weight cuts as to what is too much, and you sort of get the benefits from, they're all cutting weight, but would
Yep.
you rather be, have a cardio in the gas tank, but in itself. So when it came
Yeah.
to the event itself, obviously you've got your own fight to focus on. But outside of that, are you keeping your eyes on the lightweights? Obviously, Joe McColgan fought Kieran Lister, you get Declan McAleenan and Adam Ventry.
Yeah.
Like, are you keeping your eyes on those fights for future opponents? Was it sort of one fight, one priority?
I mean, yeah, obviously I've had a wee look at who it's all about now, because all I was focused on was winning and getting past Mehdi, and I thought if I get past Mehdi, I'm right up at the top. Now I'm obviously not there, so I'm going to have to look at who else is. I mean, the thing is, I'm not really looking at who else I want to fight, because at the end of the day, whoever Cage Warriors offer me, I'm taking. Like, I'm not going to say no to a fight. At the end of the day, whoever they give me, I'll take that. The division's stacked, like there's nothing but talent in there. These, like, everyone that's signed to Cage Warriors, it's all the best guys in Europe. Some of the fights are getting put on in Cage Warriors, and now I feel some, like, especially just now, are better than a lot of the UFC fights. Some of the cards in the UFC are not being really up to much. Some of the guys have been signing and stuff. You see better guys on Cage Warriors, I'm not fussed. I obviously know who's all about the kind of lightweight division, and just whoever they give me, man. I'm not fussed. I'm not there to take on easy fights. I'm just gonna take whoever they offer me.
I mean, this is kind of the point of Cage Warriors. What Dean does so well. I mean, he was the real MVP of the weekend. There's no two ways about it. Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
Because the prime example, a Jordan Pachernik, Paul Hughes fight, two prospects. Any other divisions,
Great
any
fight.
organizations, what they do is they sort of pad them out, and they'd eventually fight each other, maybe. But no, fucking okay. Here's a nice little bottleneck, nice and early. 6 fights in each of you. Crack on, and that's what we got.
Yeah,
I mean,
great. That was a great fight. Like, I really enjoyed that one. It was back and forth. It was really close. It probably could have went either way, to be honest. But I was kind of I like Jordan. I don't know him too well. I just know he was Luke's old teammate, and he done the podcast for Higher Level podcast and he was a nice lad. But I was kind of obviously rooting for him. I had kind of known him a wee bit more than another lad, but I was kind of glad in a way, because the fence grab in the first round, man, that kind of won Paul Hughes the first round. He hit the switch after the fence grab, so like I was like, that's karma. He's got the win. That was a great fight, man. It would be good, obviously, to see that fight again. It was that good, but I feel like Jordan could potentially get a title fight next. I think he's probably next in line.
Oh, 100%. I think it was definitely a title eliminator. Again, the thing with the Paul Hughes fight I thought was quite interesting was the commentary and the sort of the Irish bias and the backlash they sort of had on that sort of thing. But again, that gets a bit too political. That's another conversation.
Yeah.
But this is it. Now, when it comes to obviously your camps themselves, are they always in high level? Is it all like, same camp, same sort of mix? Or do you mix around? Because obviously you got Aidan Stephen, you get quite a mix of like Scottish fighters, you get Chris Duncan
Yeah.
and Ross Houston. Like, do you mix around
Yep.
quite a lot, or is it mainly stay in house?
Nah, I always just train at a higher level. I've always done it that way. I've got, like, the boys I've got to spar with, especially at my weight, it's ridiculous, to be honest, like the kind of talent. Stevie Ray, obviously he's been my main sparring partner for, it's 5-6 years now, so I've kind of had the luxury of having him, and like prior to, like, guys obviously are kind of retired now, like Martin Delaney, who was like a top lightweight in Europe, Graham Turner, who was Cage Warriors, he fought for the belt and stuff. Guys like Ian Feenan, they're all high level lightweights, so I've been quite fortunate that way. But a lot of the boys come up to spar at our, but Aidan comes up quite a lot. He lives quite far away. He's in Elgin, which is probably about a 3 and a bit hour drive for him. But he comes down most camps now. Gets inspired. He's a real good guy, and I've got a lot of time for him. Sometimes Paul McBain comes down when he's got camps. Chris Duncan comes in and that as well. I'm not really. Ross Houston's been in once or twice, I think, but I've never actually got to train with Ross. I know Ross Welty is a real good guy, but he's up in Inverness as well, so they're kind of out the road a wee bit. But we get a lot of guys coming into our gym to spar anyway. So I get plenty of different training partners.
That's always important, because there's always that sort of conflicting argument of either you train with the same people and pick up the same habits, but also you learn their sort of styles a lot better. but also you get a new, fresh opponent. Because again, for example, you didn't have any prior experience to sparring with them, so you didn't know any reactions. Whereas if you sparred, to fight someone you train with all the time, you sort of gather, okay, I get the gist of what's going to happen.
Yeah, I know. That's a good point. Medi's got it's quite a hard style to kind of imitate. I had Danny Henry. Sorry, I never even mentioned Danny when I said that about the other guys to train with. Danny Henry's obviously signed to UFC. He's a UFC featherweight. He done my full camp with me, and he imitated that style. But like I said before, we kind of I predicted Medi to kind of hang off and not pressure. So that's actually not Danny's style. So he was actually getting quite annoyed, I think, because like his leg was getting chewed up a bit with the leg kicks. But it was just kind of trying to imitate that style. But it was quite a weird style to try and imitate, to be honest. I've got a couple other guys, a young amateur lad that trains me called Kunle. He's a really good fighter. He's got good striking, kind of similar-ish size to Medi. So I had a couple of guys that could do it. Young lad Mark Ewan that's coming through. He's going to go pro next year. He's a real top. I think he's number 1 in the UK for amateur for lightweight. He's got a lot of potential. So a lot of good guys coming through as well. So I had guys to try and imitate that style. Just not good enough, obviously.
No, but even in itself, the nature of being unpredictable. And again, he could have, if you had them imitating that style so specifically, there's something completely different. You wasted that camp essentially to an extent. Now, with
aye.
Sorry, mate, I thought you finished.
No, on you go. No, it's fine.
And so, when it comes to your camp and the more fight-specific side of things, with your sparring, are you doing like, okay, we have like 3 5s, this is my fight, which is, not necessarily get the 4 ounces on, but okay, you know what you're signing up for? Or is it just normal sparring in the class and you work out your own styles and game plans from there?
Normally, it's just normal. It's like everybody's doing 5 5s or everybody's doing 6 5s. That's kind of, and we just kind of, I'll go with it. But obviously, with the whole COVID situation, this camp, there wasn't as many people in the gym. Because there was only a certain amount of people allowed to train, so it was only like elite athletes or whatever. So I had mainly Danny for this full camp. So I done 5 5 some days, and I only spar a Friday and a Sunday. So I would do like 5 5s and maybe do 3 5s, or we do shooter box rounds and stuff. We just kind of mix it up with the sparring. We don't like. Usually we build it up through the camp. So like at the start of camp, we'll maybe start with like 3 5s, and then we'll slowly build them up. And then by the end of the camp, you're doing like 6 5s, and maybe 2 weeks out, you're just tailing it right down again. So we didn't really specific, like we kind of mix it up a lot with the sparring rounds.
Okay, I mean, that in itself, it makes sense having sort of just 2 good quality sessions instead of trying to cram in loads and loads and loads and loads of stuff. Now, when it comes to your development as your career goes on and your time training goes on, are you one to build on what you already got? Are you want to try something completely out of your usual sort of wheelhouse? What's your usual way of, making your own training interesting still in your own development?
Yeah, it's that's the good thing about martial arts. I think there's always areas you can improve on. So I just kind of, if there's sometimes like a loss does that to you, is you start thinking yourself, where did I go wrong? What did I do? And I don't really feel like I've done too much wrong. I think the pressure thing ended up paying off for him. And I think I maybe would have changed up the game plan round 2 if he never caught me right before the end of the first. But I don't really specifically change my kind of. I just kind of stick to my routine of what I've got, and I'm just kind of trying to improve all the time. I'm trying to. I train in the gi for jiu-jitsu, and I do boxing. I've got my strength conditioning coach. I've got it all in kind of place, and it's always worked for me. If I feel like I'm not improving, or like I really need to work on something else, I would maybe look at changing it up a bit and maybe specifically training something a bit more or whatever. Maybe taking out a couple of striking classes and doing more jiu-jitsu or whatever. But I feel like I'm developing all the time, and I'm always improving, which is the main thing.
I mean, this is sort of that in itself. And again, it's more just general sort of, again, you get plateaus. Again, you train as long as you have, compete as long as you have. Again, you're doing similar routines for as long as you have. Now, are you doing primarily a lot of like strict discipline stuff, kind of saying gi jiu-jitsu, the boxing, the kickboxing kind of stuff. Are you doing them MMA specifically? Like, for example, you're doing the gi, you're trying to stay on top and try and pass, or you're just trying to do jiu-jitsu for jiu-jitsu and then keep that as a separate thing? What's that to you in that sense?
Yeah, no, well, obviously I train in the gi, but everything's tailored for me towards MMA. I'm not, I'm going through belts and stuff for jiu-jitsu. I'll do it at a later time. Everything that I'll do jiu-jitsu wise and grappling wise is so it works in an MMA fight. Like my boxing, like I'm not looking to be in a boxing match. I'm looking for it to work for MMA. So everything that I do is tailored. Like sometimes when I grapple with guys, and like obviously a lot of the guys at our gym just train straight jiu-jitsu, so they don't actually do MMA. So it can be a bit boring sometimes because I'll be just like sitting in half guard because I'm like, if we were fighting, I'd be punching you in the face. So
Sort of throwing some shadow elbows and stuff.
I do that sometimes. As you can see, like the jiu-jitsu guys getting a wee bit worried, but no, like a lot of that's the things that I like about it as well. We've got so many different styles in the gym, and I like it. Some people kind of moan about like some people that are really unorthodox, but that's what makes it interesting. Do you know what I mean? Like it makes it fun. Do you know what I mean? If everybody fought the same, then it would end up a draw all the time. So I like the different styles and stuff.
That's kind of nature of like development in general. Again, if you haven't got something to then work off of, you don't go anywhere. Because again, it's just
Correct.
If you have the same jab and it always lands, why would you bother feinting? Why would you bother throwing across?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's kind of thing in itself. Now, regards of your training, like not necessarily the whole how did it start, is that and the other, but did you go purely from MMA, or was it more a separate discipline and then having to integrate MMA?
No, I played football, so I never had any martial arts background whatsoever. Like my older brother, Craig, he fought MMA, so I was playing football at the time, and I used to go and watch him fight, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like I was quite into it, and then I got like a professional. It was like a team called Stirling Albion, which at the time they were like first division in Scotland. So I got a first team appearance and stuff, and I was looking quite promising with the football for a while. To be honest, I thought I was going to kind of make it, but football's a tough game. It's sometimes if your face fits and stuff. So I ended up like going playing junior and stuff, and it just never worked out. So I was looking to try something new, and I was like, oh, this looks pretty good. So I went down to it was actually a kind of judo club I originally trained at, but like they had MMA fighters, and there used to be like the town I stay in is called Alloa, and they used to put on local shows. So like I used to go and watch my brother and that, and the atmosphere and stuff was amazing because like obviously my brother was from Alloa and like a hometown show and stuff. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then after 3 months of training, not got a clue what I'm doing. Like I could do the basics, but like you'd be lucky if I could throw up a triangle and an armbar. That was about all I had, and I could box a wee bit. So the guy who was Josh Gavin, who was a really high level judoka, he was like, oh, because I was in good shape and stuff, because I was like quite athletic. He was like, oh, you should get you a fight. And Craig was like not wanting me to fight, obviously, till I was like ready. But he waited till Craig went on holiday, and he was like, do you want to fight? And I was obviously game, and I was like, yeah, get me matched and stuff. So I took a fight on, like, I'd been training 3 months, like I said, and I ended up knocking the guy out in like 16 seconds. So like I was hooked on it for that. Like honestly, see, when I think back, it was ridiculous even. And it used to be those semi-pro rules where you had the 4-ounce gloves. You could only hit to the body.
Knees to the head and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but you could only hit to the body on the ground, which was ridiculous. So I luckily knocked the guy out in like 16 seconds, and obviously it was like a hometown show and stuff, so I was like buzzing. And I've just been hooked on it ever since that, man. Like it's quite ironic. That was pretty much 9 years to the day that I fought on Cage Warriors there, so it's been a long road to get to a decent level, but I finally got there.
I mean, this is as well. I love that sort of, sneaking off like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. And funny enough, you mentioned about the weird rules. Jordan Vichenik, we mentioned him earlier. He's got a TKO finisher amateur from ground and pound to the body from mount. I think in a C-class fight.
you would hate to be that guy that got stopped with ground and pound to the body, like. How could you ever live that down?
Like this.
How could you ever live that down? Like punching him in the arms or something? Give him a dead arm. Aye,
Oh, it's so good.
that's pretty embarrassing.
Oh, mate, it's awful. Now, obviously, competing in MMA, obviously, you're practicing other martial arts. Do you ever compete in them and just for all your own competition practice sort of thing? Like, do you do like jiu-jitsu
Uh,
competitions?
yeah, nah, I should though. Not now. When I first started, I was trying everything out. To be honest, I fought Thai boxing a couple of times. I've undefeated in Thai boxing, 2 fights. I've got kind of a good kind of Thai style, so it's always been like I've always preferred striking, to be honest. I done a couple of grappling comps when I first started. I probably should do them more, to be honest. I'm got pretty decent grappling. My brother's always kind of saying to me, you should do them and stuff. He's right in it now. He's kind of came away from MMA, and he's been more focusing on his like just jiu-jitsu. And he's been doing really well. He's beat a lot of good guys and stuff, and done like one Naga and stuff. So he's doing really well. He loves it though, man. That's always been his passion. Even when he fought MMA, like if you look at his record, pretty much all his wins are submission. He's got a couple of knockouts and stuff, but like he's got like ridiculous amount of arm bars, and he's pretty tricky on the ground. Like so, I've right from the start, I've always had had good defence, because people are always like to be, like, see if somebody tries to darce me or that now, like they've got no chance, because my brother's been ragging on my neck for like the last 9 years. Him and Callum Murray, who I've trained with for a while too. I don't know, Callum's a good fighter, and he's the same with the darce stuff and the Japanese neckties and stuff. So I very rarely get caught in one of them, because I'm that used to them. Been doing it for like the last 5-6 years constantly.
The thing with like darts and sort of arm end sort of stuff, you always get your neck so sort of janked up kind of thing. Because even guillotine is fairly flat, but it's like you always sort of crunched and twisted in this, that, and the other.
It's more like the pressure on the neck sometimes is, rather than actually getting choked.
Somebody can walk when you get back up again. Now, regardless of obviously your previous competition experience, even in football as well, how have you been with like handling nerves in the day? Has it been something you've always been a bag of nerves? You crack on with it? Are you just sort of autonomous? How do you find like performing on the actual day itself?
Never been too nervous. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'll get a wee bit of nerves, and it's more that kind of anxious. Yeah, like you don't know what's going to happen. But I don't get nervous. Like I've had 20 fights or whatever now, so I've done it a fair bit. But even my first fight, man, my mentality towards the fighting's obviously changed over the years. Where when I first started, I was like, I'm going to kill this guy. Like I had that in my head. Like that is just the way I thought. Like it's either me or him. I'm literally got to kill this guy. And that's just. But then you think about it, it's kind of naive, and like it's not. It's a sport at the end of the day, and you need to outsmart the guy at times. So I think you just get more, like anything, you get more experience as you go on, and the nerves. I'm going to say I still get a little bit of nerves, but I'm never nervous, or I'm never at the point where the nerves would affect me in the fight. And to be honest, that last fight was probably one of the most calm I've been for a fight. To be honest, I think I just trust my training, and I trust. I know I never leave myself short. Like I always know I put in the work. So I think when you're going into the fight, it's kind of a little bit more calming, where you know you've done all the work. What happens. Like you just need to let it. And obviously, you're always wanting to win, and that's the main goal. Like every fight, like I never want to lose. I hate losing. I'm not a good loser either, to be honest. I hate it, but that's just part of being like in sports. But it's part of the sport, and that's it. Somebody's got to lose, so you can sit and cry about it. You can go do something about it. Do you know what I mean? You can. At the end of the day, like I always said, it's a thing my dad always says to me, is you can only give it your best. So like at the end of the day, you can only give it your best, and I know every fight I put in the work. I know, and I know I'll never quit in a fight. Like I know I'll always give it my all, and if it's not good enough on the night, it's not good enough on the night. I can accept that, but when you slack in training and not putting the work in, that's when you deserve what you get, really, in my opinion.
I mean, I like that a lot. Again, you're sort of earning your confidence, because again, like, what do you have to be nervous about at that point, other than an expected sense of, okay, what you've prepared for it best you realistically could. And I like the way you're saying how you've, again, that sort of composure and taking that sort of sport mentality that, kill or be killed. That, it's all very interesting attitude. And sometimes you need a bit of venom, but as a whole, it is a sport. And you'd say, if you take the Luke's fight, for example, that's very much that sort of kill or be killed. Very much got a taste of blood. Someone he doesn't like goes after it. but again, not having that sort of sport mindset to then adapt to then even to then implement that same want to kill. It's very
Yeah,
much that extra level of sort of, I don't know, composure as such.
yeah. I said that to Luke after the fight. I thought he maybe did get caught up in the build up a wee bit much, but when I spoke to him, he's like, nah, never. But Luke's a funny wee character, so he didn't know what was going on in his head half the time. But he was like, nah, I never got caught up in it. He was like, it was just part of the. It's just part of the kind of, like, I knew what I was doing. He just kind of was getting the takedowns on me and stuff. And I think it's easy saying that, but I think the weight cut had a big issue in that fight, to be honest. I've never seen Luke looking tired in a fight, but he actually did look tired. And you seen him with Fedine, although he had he had a ridiculous weight cut for that fight, he fought amazing for 5 rounds, but it's different when you're carrying somebody's weight for majority of the fight, you know what I mean? So that would have taken it out of him. And it might have been, he might have noticed that prior fight if it went another way with Fedine, but obviously it never. But like if he was carrying his weight, it maybe been a wee kick up the arse for him to be like, shit, I can't do these weight cuts like this. And I think now he's realised like he can't do it, especially at this level. Like you want to give yourself the best opportunity to win, and like you can't be coming into like fight week 20 odd pounds overweight. Like it's ridiculous, especially his weight. Like that's a lot for me to cut.
Mm-hmm.
So it's ridiculous for him to cut that when he's fighting at 56.7, which is crazy. So, but I think he's learned his lesson. Touch wood.
I mean, it's the whole thing with percentages and nothing else. Because again, you hear like the heavyweights cut an X amount of weight, you think, oh god, that's a lot of weight. But you know, the big boys, there's a lot of them to lose. Whereas, you know, a little man, it's a bit of a.
It's more difficult. Like your body can only like hold so much water. You know what I mean? Like, and it's water he's trying to get off. It's not like he's depleting like glycogen and salts and whatever else. But he's actually like trying to lose that amount of water, which is a lot of weight. And he had a nutritionist on board for this one, so I don't know if he wasn't really following it as strictly as he maybe should have. I don't know. James doesn't really take in to do about weight cuts, to be honest. He leaves that on us. Like he's got enough stuff. He's got like 30 odd fighters to deal with. Like he's not really got time to be like specifically looking at what weight we are every week. You know, that's your job. And as fighters and professionals, that's what you need to do. And at the end of the day, he made the weight, and I just think this time it affected him. But I think he's learned his lesson, and he'll know not to do that in future, I think.
Now that in itself is an interesting thing, that you having to learn these lessons. Because again, this whole thing of don't be wary of borrowed wisdom as such. Again, these sort of sayings, like, it's pretty, you know, self-evident. You know, don't leave a weight cut too late. You think, yeah, it's all right, but unless it's actually stung you a little bit, you need to sort of, you know, appreciate a certain level. Now, regards of like things you've learned from like previous like performances, albeit even wins, like what sort of things you've taken that similar kind of vein of, okay, I didn't really appreciate that until I've been sort of stung by it as such.
Yeah, I think I've obviously had a lot more wins than I've had losses, so I think you just kind of take them for granted at times, to be honest. But a loss does give you a kind of, I hate losing there, like I do, I can't, it kills me, but it's one of those things, I don't know, I think you can read into losses sometimes a wee bit too much. Like try to cheat. I don't. There's nothing I would have really changed going into that fight, that one prior anyway. I just feel it never really hurt me at all, to be honest. Like the shots that he was landing, the pressure. He done a lot of good things. Like the pressure was really good. But I deal with that all the time anyway. So like I'm used to that kind of style. So it kind of threw me off. I didn't expect him to do it, but I've dealt with that a million times in the gym, so I knew what I like. I know how to deal with that kind of style. But and even the shots that he did land, they weren't like so much like like I didn't feel like wobbled or anything, but he done like the shot that landed that dropped me, I didn't see, which is the ones that usually hurt the most. It cracked me a really good right hand, which did kind of ring my bell a wee bit. And I tried to circle away, and he's cracked a left hook, and it's just sat me down. And to be honest, I was completely there. Like I could have easily got out of the round. I think I might have not have if he landed 3 or 4 clean shots, but I don't think he would have, because I was still completely there to be able to grapple. Just the refs jumped in. It's obviously my body language at that point looked like I wasn't like wanting to continue kind of thing. I can't complain with the stoppage, like, but I feel like I could have got out of the round if I had the opportunity, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. Like, I'm not going to dispute the decision. It was a fair stoppage when I watch it back, so fair play.
I mean, this is, again, something I respect quite a lot, is the way you're talking about it. Not so much, because again, as much as you said the losses hurt and they sting as much as they do, you've taken that almost as a separate thing in itself. That this performance is almost not even your performance. The individual did this, that, and the other. This did well. This is a problem. This, that, and the other. Very much matter of fact. I think that's a very healthy way to sort of deal with that kind of situation. Like, take it as that. But how are you with leaving that at that? Now, this was that performance. This is it analysed, left, put to bed there. How are you with, parking that bus and then cracking on with everything else?
Yeah, I mean, I watched the fight. I watched it 4 or 5 times, to be honest. I watched it back. I don't usually do that with fights. I don't usually watch fight back. Even if I've lost before, I didn't really watch the fight back. Like, unless I feel like there's stuff I really should improve on, or things I've done wrong. I did make a couple of mistakes in the fight, or I wouldn't have lost, but I think I would have probably tried and changed up the game plan round 2. It's hard to say, because, to be honest, when I looked at the fight on paper, I kind of had it in my head. I thought, this is alright. I thought I had a wee bit more tools in him to beat him. His game plan worked on the night, and I feel like I still could beat him. And I might fight him down the line. I don't know. It might happen. He's a good fighter. Like, I wouldn't have been like going in. I'm 100% going to win this fight. I knew there was a possibility I could lose. Like, I think people are naive if they go into fights not thinking there's a possibility they could get beat, especially with 4 ounce gloves on. I think it's ridiculous, to be honest. It's good to have that confidence and have no other thought in your head that you're gonna win. But the way I've always looked at it, I know there's a chance that I could lose as well. That's the way I've always looked at fights, and it's worked for me. So I never took this fight lightly. I trained hard, and like I said before, I was confident going in. I felt like I had a good game plan to beat him, and I feel like the leg kicks would have paid dividend in later rounds. When I seen him after the fight, obviously he was kind of hobbling a bit and he was struggling to walk a wee bit on his leg. So I feel like maybe later rounds that would have paid off, and I think that's maybe why when he did hit me a good shot, he's went for it. I feel like he's maybe in his head saying, like, I don't want to take many more leg kicks, because it might, like, you know what it's like if your leg goes, everything goes. Your movement and everything's affected. So it's maybe why he's put the foot in the gas when he's had me kind of rocked. And he done a good job. When I watched the fight back, his shot selection and stuff was really good. But the fight suited his style. Like, he's predominantly a boxer, and he kind of made it a boxing fight in a way. Well, kind of similar, not kind of kickboxing-ish, but it was more a boxing fight because the pressure, and it was hard to get any kind of my style off with the way he fought. So he done a good job, and I think he implemented his game plan better than I wanted to implement mine.
Now, again, there's an interesting sort of response with that, and again, it's more so the next fight you have, and then the emotions and everything else from this instance. Because again, as much as you're being very respectful, very sportsmanlike, saying he did this well, this, that, and the other, this is more tending to a boxing fight, it was more your reaction to it. Because as much as you're being very understanding that this is the risk involved, like,
Yeah.
it's a fight. Is this a very even situation?
Yeah, that's it.
Like, your next fight now, is that a clean slate in itself? Is it going to be, okay, I'm going to make sure I don't let that happen again from the last fight? Is it just its own entity? How do you treat that sort of that difference?
It's just another fight. It's just another fight. I don't see putting the point in putting any more pressure on myself, being like, oh, I can't let this happen again. I can't get, like, I better not take a big right hand. Like, it might happen, It's for me to prepare for that, and you just got to absorb the shots and stuff. I don't feel like I wasn't knocked out or anything, so I don't think it's like affecting me in any way. So I just don't look at it like, I don't see the point in putting any more pressure on myself, being like, I have to win this next fight or whatever. Obviously that's the main goal, But it is what it is. You know what I mean? I'll go and give it my best. Like I say, every fight I just go and give it my best. If it works out, works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm going to improve again before my next fight, and next time I will be able to showcase my skill set like to full. I think I'm obviously hungrier than ever going back in. Like I'm going to prove a point, but at the end of the day, you've still got to know that it's a fight. Like I've said prior, like anything can happen. So, but I'm going to be the best version of myself. That's for sure.
Well, definitely, it's very important to have that kind of understanding, that composure, because again, this is the sort of common theme in this, is that being aware of the situation, not playing dumb, playing naive to, okay, this wouldn't happen to me, but thinking, okay, and if it does, it's okay, it happens, but also not accepting that it's going to happen, like appreciating the risk assessment as such.
That you put that perfect. That's basically what I was trying to say.
Okay, again, I get where you're coming from. I was just trying to like make sure I understood it the way you were trying to explain it. Now,
that was perfect.
With oh, thank you. I was going to say, so an interesting thing you sort of said earlier in this sort of conversation was full-time training, full-time working. Again, this isn't the ideal fighting situation because as everyone thinks they see professional fighters, you know, oh, they get paid sponsors, they don't have to do anything. They wake up when they want, roll out of bed, hit the pads, and then they're away, they're sorted. So the real world, how do you find the balance of everything else? Like, is your job quite full on? Is it more admin based? Like, how do you find the sort of split?
I've got a nice wee cushy office job, so I work 8 till 4. I get a nice wee hour lunch break where I can go and do like some gym work and stuff. So I've not really got a stressful job where I mean it's still stressful to an extent, but it's not it's not taxing my body. So aye, exactly. So and you know that they're really good with me. Where I get quite a lot of holidays. We get like 42 days annual leave a year, so it works out. So when I've got a fight camp, what I usually do is I usually train during the day as well. I usually take like half days or whatever, and I just go and train during the day, go back to work, and then I go and train again at night. So that's usually what I do for my fight camps. I just like I said before, I just want to give myself the best opportunity of winning. So I feel like majority of guys that are signed to Cage Warriors are full time. There is obviously some that aren't, but like I think a big part of the roster is full time. There's just not enough money at that. Like, although it's a high level, like a really high level of fighting, I think you probably know yourself. There's not a lot of money in MMA, and even when you get to the UFC, it's not that amazing. Like I know boys that are signed to the UFC, and like Stevie, probably the only exception. The money's not great unless you're winning all the time, and it's so cutthroat as well. Where like you lose 2 in the bounce and you're gone. Like they don't really, unless you're very marketable, they're not really that fussed about you, to be honest. And that's just the nature of the sport. But you want to get to that highest level and prove it. Like I think everybody that gets into MMA wants to get to UFC. It's like the ultimate kind of goal for everybody. So it's been so amazing for like guys like Stevie and stuff, who's not just got to the UFC but had like over 10 fights in the UFC. Like it's some folks' goal is just to get there, and then when they get there, they're gone before they know it. So guys like Stevie and Danny, they're guys I look up to in the gym. Like they've done an amazing job, and like Danny still works kind of part time, full time kind of job as well. So he's worked all the way through. Stevie's been a bit different, but it paid off dividends for Stevie, because right before Stevie got signed to the UFC, he was considering giving up MMA, because I think when he was signed to Cage Warriors, and obviously that was his full-time income at that point, he was, I think, seriously struggling. And I was actually kind of, we were just down in Newcastle. We actually went on like a night out. A couple of the boys were fighting, so we went and out steaming, and like it was maybe 2 days later, he got called to the UFC with like 10 days notice. Had like 12 kilos to cut in 10 days and got it off, and he stopped the boy in the, I think, second round, Marcin Bandel, I'm sure it was. But Stevie's hands down the best guy I've ever trained with. Like he's different level, man. Like he can, I think you can make the set, like he's full. It's more the full game. Like he's amazing, like in every aspect of MMA, and he puts it together the best. And tough as fuck. Like he's a tough boy. But he's been like really good with me all the way through. Because I've like me and him have had like been like me and sparring partners for like quite a while. So he's really helped my game develop. And he's really helpful. He's really honestly knowledgeable with stuff. So he's an all-round good guy, and he deserves everything he's got to get to where he's at, and he's actually coming back now. So, but he's a bit bigger than what he used to be. He's like he's like 88 kilos or something like that now. So
Whoa,
the
big boy.
sparring should be
That's a big
interesting.
lightweight.
I think he's maybe moving up. I think he's maybe moving up to welter, or maybe like try and do like a 165 or whatever. But he's a big lump.
Those 12-kilo weight cuts will come in handy in the repertoire. I mean,
Aye.
I mean that in itself is really interesting. I mean, that's sort of again that point of like, you know, do I give up? Do I go? You don't know how far away you really are, that kind of thing. And again, this is kind of that whole conversation of, yes, you don't paid as well as you should do, but again, it's more the opportunity as such. Because again, it's a sort of that's a very remote way of explaining it. Like what you don't get paid is you get the opportunity, the platform, this, that, and the other. And it's true, but like, but do you think having to work almost improves your camp, having not have to focus on the fight the whole time? Because again, people often burn out quite a lot. It's an interesting one.
It's hard for me to say, just because I've never done it. I've never had the kind of the both sides of it. I've always just done my thing where I've worked, and I don't really, to be honest, I don't really over obsess about the fight. Like obviously, it's always on my mind, and it's until the fight's done, you've kind of got a little bit of relief where it's all done, and you can get and not be as stressed as much. But I don't really overthink it too much. I know what I'm getting myself into. Like I've done it that much. Like I know what I'm getting myself into when I sign the contract. But I don't. It's hard for me to say because I've not done it for both sides. But I know for like guys like Luke and stuff, I think it's good to have that sole focus where you don't have to worry about anything else. Like that's all you've got to worry about. I think that is a good thing. Like having to get time off your work for the fight, time after the fight. You don't know what your face is going to be like after the fight. Your body could be in bits. You could have a broken arm. So all that stuff kind of plays into factor when you're working. Where I think when you're not working, you don't have to think about stuff like that. And Luke's definitely had the benefits from I think going full time. Like I think his whole games came on leaps and bounds since going full time. He's been the best version of himself. So I definitely think there is. If I had an option, I would like to go full time. Like I would love to be a full time fighter, but I just don't think it's feasible, to be honest.
I'd say it's probably the next step in the career further down the line. Again, it's never say never. You never know what's going to come around the corner.
That's it.
Thank you so much for your time, my friend. Is there any sponsors you want to shout out?
I've got a few. Let me actually check.
I was going to say like NASCAR. Okay,
right. I've got A1 Autos in Alawa. I've got Dynamic Construction, Spasm Therapies, Mick Designs, Crown Inn, Cafe 34, Top Mark Tattoo, Chris Fit, and there's probably ones where is it?
Pitbull West Coast.
Pitbull West Coast, Geo Thompson, and what's it called? TBFX. It's a trader who just started sponsoring me too. He's a good guy, so that's them all, I think.
That's it.
Thanks for your time, mate.
No problem, mate. And also check out this podcast sponsors. We've got the English Hypnotist, Rieco Clothing, and the People's IT. What's your social media, mate? Where can people find you?
On Instagram, I'm smop90, and on Facebook, I'm Stevie McIntosh.
Awesome.
That's me.
It'll be in the description.